So what does it mean to be able to say yes to a customer? One of the interesting things that also parallels the development of unlimited licensing and the rise of ignition and inductive automation in this space, as Don said, in a mature space. SCADA was a mature space, a lot of incumbents, et cetera, doing things the way they'd always been done. What's interesting is, of course, in parallel we have, yeah, and you know the buzzwords: digital transformation, smart manufacturing, all these new technologies that are being brought to bear in the OT space that are causing real churn in our industry, but also vast opportunities. We can do so much more than we were able to do many years ago. And SCADA in the 1990s could be licensed by tag because your systems were isolated HMIs, islands of automation, had a couple hundred tags. It is not uncommon to have hundreds of thousands of tags in systems. It's an expectation. And there's many different audiences for those systems. So in an industry that's brand new, and there's quite a few new industries, new innovative ideas, like the one we see here. This is an opportunity that we were presented with, a project we've now successfully implemented for our client. And we call it, I like to call it, the customer calls it, cow to cash rather, excuse me, basically making profitable renewable resources. This is renewable natural gas, basically taking cow manure, okay, as a raw material, and turning that into natural gas that I can use to heat my home, that we can use in a factory, that we can use to power a fleet of trucks. This is gas that ultimately is of the high enough quality to go straight into the pipeline and ultimately be used and contribute to the overall energy independence and a circular economy for energy, even in the fossil fuel industries. That wouldn't have been possible years ago. It wouldn't have been possible without all the innovations and technologies and capabilities that we can bring to bear today in the SCADA arena, and inductive ignition is a huge part of that. If you think about it again, what we're doing here is you can see in the diagram here, we're building essentially mini factories on farms in remote locations that typically don't have a tremendous amount of infrastructure, don't even have really good internet connections all the time. And yet we are building these mini factories. So there's automation and safety and control. And since they are new sites and they're remote sites and they're kind of mini factories, they don't have and there's never been an intention to have them fully staffed. So there's a lot of automation, a lot of need for autonomy, again, safety. There is a need for a lot of remote access in order to have visualization and awareness of what's going on in these locations continuously, as well as safety conditions, alarms, etc. And then, possibly most importantly, is that we're spending a lot of money to implement all these factories and deploy them and bring them up and turn this byproduct, if you will, into a product that we can use renewable natural gas. And in doing so, that requires an awful lot of data. The economy that makes this possible it wasn't really even economically viable if it's not for the concept of carb credits. So I know Don's in California, so thank you, California. Okay, but the fact is the carb economy and the ability for this company to basically apply for and get a dollar responsive value to offset the cost of producing this product makes it economically viable. But in order to qualify those carb credits, there's a need for a tremendous amount of accurate data. So all these things come together and you say to yourself, this is a level 2 and level 1 system that is very, very complex, requires a lot of accuracy, stability, and is going to scale. So think about this in the traditional SCADA fashion. It's a new industry. It's never been done before at scale. And I'm the sales guy, and I'm being brought this opportunity, and I want to go and say to my customer, yes. Now, as a technology person and knowing the technology, of course I can say yes. I know that the inductive ignition tool is the right tool for this. I know that the technologies that are available today, such as MQTT, for example, are going to allow us to scale. Cloud-based storage is going to allow us to scale very quickly in this system. But now I have a constraint. I have a lot of different OEM skids and vendors that are all over the world that are going to bring the equipment to each of these farms. And there's different skids and different collection of OEM equipment that will implement each different location depending upon what's the need. So how many connections do I need? How many PLCs do each of these OEM skids have? One, more, some of them are safety systems, right? So they could have multiple PLCs, et cetera, different types of PLCs, different vendors, different equipment, okay? How many tags? How much data? There's process control requirements, of course, because it is a mini factory. Like any factory, it's in traditional process control fashion. But then there's an awful lot of other audiences. In fact, this is a new industry. And we're in the era of smart manufacturing. So our customer says to us, I need to buy, it's a brand new vertical for me, a new ERP system, a new CMMS system. All of these different pieces of software are going to come to bear in a greenfield environment. It's a unique opportunity because we can bring to this customer concepts like unified namespace. We don't have to do it in a brownfield where we have to map everything together at a top level system. We all know that Ignition has great power to be able to scale and structure data in ways and name entities and conventions in way and use naming conventions in ways that would allow us to supply and publish data into a unified namespace. So lots of great opportunities here to apply technologies that we're all thinking about today. Someone mentioned before, I think it might have been Nathan, how many clients? I got to count the number of clients. How many clients do I need? Where are they going to be? Who is going to be the audience for these clients? Oh, I can't quote this right now, Mr. Customer. I need to get my arms around what this is going to look like and count all the tags. No, that's not the way we work today, right? The fact is, at each of these sites, it is a mini factory. And so they have a traditional HMI deployment. You can see in the top left screen, kind of a summary screen. It shows the general process flow and each of the different OEM skids in this particular location. And then they can drill down and see detailed information about operations, details inside the skids. So this is a single pane of glass view across all of the different automation or the balance of plant, all the safety interlocks, the security systems around the facility, and it's all done in a secure fashion. And so they can see all this. And yet I mentioned that there's really nobody staffing these places 24/7. So they actually have to be able to see this data remotely. Each of these sites, given the scale and the size of the site, can flex between, as we've now learned, 10,000 and 30,000 tags. So a pretty wide variability in the number of sites. So now if I want to deploy this to the end game, which is in the 40, 50 range, I need to count up all those tags, but I don't want to pay 30,000 per site if half the sites only take 10,000. I got to know what those sites are going to take. And again, starting out fresh, first site, greenfield, I don't want to be wasting my time trying to count this stuff and estimate it and then get it wrong for my client. So as I mentioned, you need to be able to bring all this data together too, which is another important, powerful feature. I think someone, again, Sean or Nathan, I don't know who to credit, but said, talk about counting screens. I think you both chimed in on this and having to overload screens with dialogues and things like that. It's like, okay, so how am I going to bring this visualization together so that I have a central location to look at all the status of this information and even have flexibility to do other things with the data? Again, a lot of key stakeholders here. Everyone was very interested in the power of this SCADA system and what it could do for them. Not just the operations folks, not just folks in safety and day-to-day operations, but logistics people. They're moving gas around. Maintenance folks, all new equipment, all new OEM skids. I need to know what the run times on those pumps are. I need to set up a whole new preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance, because we're in the 21st century in smart manufacturing, program in order to proactively keep these systems up and running, right? Compliance and accounting, as I mentioned, we've got to have accurate data in order to make carb credit, in order to calculate carb credits, in order to be able to make this a viable business. So what we ended up building on top of all of those local SCADA systems, okay, which stitch together all the data and provide that mini factory, is we built a control central SCADA, a centralized SCADA system that brings together data through MQTT, okay, from all these different sites. So again, not great internet connections, need a little bit of store and forward capability at times. You got to get a lot of data through the system in low bandwidth situations. Bring all that data up into a central location and allow a central control room and a central set of operators and logistics individuals to see bird's eye view of the operation, understand exactly what's going on, where the trouble spots are, if any, and react and be proactive in keeping everything up and running across all these different sites. In addition to being able to visualize this stuff, and you can see on the right hand side, using the dashboard based component, which is part of Ignition as well, to be able to build out cards and basically bring together key KPIs that people need to look at and concentrate on, and really overload a screen now and let people build their own screens from these widgets, which is a really powerful thing that you can do with an Ignition to give people that the view that they need, all these different users, all these different stakeholders, the view they need of the data, the way they want to see it. But in addition to all that, they actually have the ability to bring up all of the HMI screens from any individual site on this particular central SCADA. And it's done by replicating that project using EAM, okay, into the central SCADA, so they keep in sync. And then the tags are actually published from MQTT. So the central SCADA actually sees the MQTT response tag. So we're bringing basically all of the tags at different frequencies from every site up into the system, and they can see it at the central SCADA. Lots of tags. Just to give you an idea what this looks like. One site can generate 3 million records a day. Okay, and you can see the stats here. You go to 8 sites, you're at 24 million records a day. You go to 40 sites, you're at 120 million records a day. Okay, 3 million records a day per site. To start with one site, each site. It's a tremendous amount of data, not possible with older SCADA architectures, right? And you can see here in the diagram on the right-hand side, and as many of you know, you can build a multi-tier architecture with Ignition in the central SCADA. We have that where we're using distributors, we're using back-end engines, and then we're using front-end engines with load balancing on top of that, which is not depicted. But that allows us to say, hey, what are the breakpoints? Can we scale this? Can we add another distributor? How do we arrange this? Lots of different options here that we have in order to bring this system to scale, and all done with essentially a gateway install and the standard Ignition modules. So just to summarize, what I've shown here, and to reemphasize the things that Don and the team here are going to talk about, unlimited tag support, unlimited capabilities with Ignition gives you the freedom and flexibility to grow, to be able to say to the maintenance individuals who are saying to me, yeah, you got all your process information, but I didn't know my pump run times. Yeah, I can give that to you. Here's a UDT. Now you can go feed that into your CMMS system, and you can feed that. The SCADA becomes a central data platform for an awful lot of important business-related operations. Accurate data, confidence to deploy confidence from scope to deployment. As I mentioned, centralized SCADA at scale, connectivity to many of those different OEM PLCs, lots of different drivers and capabilities. I don't have to worry about the number of counts, standardized object and UDTs. Again, unlimited tags, as Don said, never having to say no to my customer.